The story begins with a man named Barry, who just brought home several bags stuffed with cash. Seeing all that money, Barry looked worried. His house was already overflowing with it. There wasn't even space left to bury more. Every time he dug somewhere, he'd only find old buried money. So Barry decided to hide this new stash in the horse stable. But the moment he opened the stable door, a pile of cash fell right on top of him. The entire place was flooded with dollar bills. But Barry hadn't always been this rich. A few years back, he was just a pilot for an airline. Barry's girlfriend was gorgeous, and life seemed perfect for him. He truly believed his life would always stay that way, peaceful and happy. But trouble was already on its way. One evening, when Barry reached his hotel to relax, a bearded man came to see him. That stranger began blackmailing Barry, accusing him of smuggling cigars for money. Hearing that, Barry broke into a cold sweat. If that news ever got out, his name would be ruined and his pilot's license would be canceled. His career finished. Seeing Barry panic, the man revealed that he was a CIA agent named Monty. He then introduced Barry to his team and took him to a secret airbase, a hangar filled with high-speed aircrafts. Barry's eyes lit up the moment he saw one of the fastest planes of that time, equipped with two incredibly powerful engines. Monty smiled, watching Barry's excitement, and told him about his new mission. Barry had to fly that plane over Central America's enemy territories, flying low near the ground to take secret surveillance photos. But this was a classified operation. He couldn't tell anyone, not even his girlfriend, Lucy. He was thrilled just to fly that beautiful aircraft. Monty opened the hangar doors so Barry could take it for a test flight. Later that day, Barry told Lucy, "I'm thinking of quitting my current job. I've got an amazing offer from another company." He didn't mention a word about the mission. Lucy found it odd. Why would a captain leave a major airline job for some unknown company? That same night, during one of his flights, Barry quietly left the cockpit, ready to start a new chapter of his life. From then on, Barry worked for Monty, flying deep into Central American regions, facing danger after danger, just to capture intelligence photos. Each flight was riskier than the last, but Barry had started to love the thrill. When Monty showed those photos to his higher-ups, they were impressed and praised Barry's work. But Lucy still didn't know a thing. Time passed. Barry and Lucy got married and even had a daughter. However, the money he was making wasn't enough to support them. Barry complained to Monty, "Man, this isn't cutting it. You gotta help me out. I can't live off this." But Monty ignored him. Instead, he gave Barry a new mission in Panama. Barry, now used to risky work, completed the mission easily. As the 1980s rolled in, he stopped in Colombia to refuel his plane. And suddenly, 3 armed men showed up, looking for him. They pointed guns at him and forced him into a car. With no choice, Barry went along. They took him to their base, where he finally met Pablo Escobar, the notorious drug lord. Pablo already knew who Barry really was, and that he'd been flying spy missions over Central America. Barry panicked and tried to defend himself, saying, "I just work for a private company, not the CIA." Pablo laughed. He already knew the truth. He said, "Relax, I'm not here to hurt you. I just need a little favor. You'll be smuggling some stuff for me. Just fly and drop my goods at the right spot." Pablo took Barry to his farm, explaining how dangerous smuggling could be. He needed Barry's flying skills for this operation. And the pay? $2,000 per kilogram for every successful delivery. Barry's eyes widened. This was way more money than taking photos. But after inspecting the setup, he realized the problem. Pablo's runway was too short. Many pilots had already died trying to take off from it. Barry warned, "You should extend this runway, Pablo. You've got enough money for it." But Pablo snapped, "If you want the job, do it. If not, get out. No advice needed." That hit Barry's ego. "Fine," he said. "I'll take off from this same runway and prove you wrong." He added, "And next time, I'll decide how to deliver your cargo. I'll drop it over an open field where your men can collect it easily." Pablo agreed and loaded up the plane. But before takeoff, Barry noticed one of Pablo's men sitting in the co-pilot's seat. Barry said, "This plane's already heavy. If we add one more person, it won't lift. He needs to get off." Pablo reluctantly made the guy step out, then handed Barry a cross pendant as a good luck charm. As Barry started his takeoff, Pablo and his crew began betting on whether he'd survive the flight. The plane almost dipped due to the weight, but Barry managed to lift it at the last second. Flying dang! When he finally entered U.S. airspace, his plane was picked up by military radar, though he had no idea. Barry turned on the autopilot, opened the hatch, and dropped the cargo right over the target zone. Mission complete. Next time Barry arrived in Colombia, Pablo and his men threw a grand welcome party for him, handing over a bag full of his hard-earned cash. Barry barely had time to celebrate when soldiers suddenly arrived and surrounded Pablo's mansion. Pablo told Barry to stay inside while he stepped out to handle the situation. But Barry had never been in the middle of a firefight before. His nerves were fraying. Grabbing the cash, Barry went out to find Pablo and the others, but the soldiers captured him and the rest of Pablo's men. A few days later, Pablo and his crew were released after being declared innocent, but Barry stayed behind in custody. While locked up and desperate, Barry was in bad shape. Bruises on his face and 2 broken teeth. Then Monty showed. Monty told him the charge was now drug smuggling and that the police would search Barry's house at 6 o'clock a.m. the next morning. Hearing that crushed Barry. He couldn't drag his family into this mess. He begged Monty for help. The more Barry pleaded, the more he realized he'd been caught deeper and deeper in Monty's web. Monty said he could help, but not for free. He explained that a neighboring country had just had a government change and many opponents were protesting the new president. Washington wanted those dissidents supplied with money and weapons, quietly, with no trace back to the US, and Monty's team had been tasked with handling it. Now Monty had a skilled pilot, Barry. He couldn't erase Barry's criminal record, but he offered a way out. Move. Go to a small town called Mina. That's where you'll meet me, Monty said. Barry had no choice. He rushed home, woke Lucy and their daughter, and said, "Pack quickly, we're leaving now." Lucy was suspicious and kept asking what was going on, but Barry couldn't explain. All he could say was, "Trust me." At dawn, the family left with everything they could carry. They arrived in Mina, a tiny town of about 2,000 people, and were taken to a rundown house Monty had arranged. Barry had barely stepped inside when he saw Monty waiting. Monty surprised him. He handed Barry control of a whole 2,000-acre airfield. Everything on it now belonged to Barry. He could hardly believe his eyes. Monty hadn't been paying much, but now he'd given Barry this massive gift. Monty opened a wooden crate full of AK-47s and explained Barry's job. Get these weapons into the target country. He gave Barry a map marking military checkpoints and patrols. The map would help Barry sneak past them. Monty also handed him a bag of cash that had been seized from Pablo's house by the military. Barry now had no good reason to refuse. Barry decided it was time to tell Lucy everything. She was furious. Moved from a decent city into a village with no TV or washing machine. How would she raise their child here? But when Barry handed her the bag of money and said, "This will buy a washing machine and anything else we need," she calmed down, counting the bills until the worry faded. By 1981, Barry had started transporting weapons. He flew to a country called Nicaragua with a cargo of arms, expecting gratitude. Instead, they took his glasses and boots, an insult that infuriated him. He called Monty to complain, but Monty offered little more than, "Do your job, deliver the shipment on time." Worried and frustrated, Barry returned and later went back with a baseball bat for protection. He quietly warned the locals to take the guns and get out, and even brought small gifts to smooth things over. Then, surprisingly, Pablo and his brothers showed up. They weren't there to fight. They explained the whole Resistance Act had been staged to get U.S. support. Pablo again asked Barry to help smuggle goods into the U.S. Now that Barry had the detailed map Monty had given him, the risk of getting caught seemed low. Barry agreed. For days he worked hard, flying weapons into Nicaragua and then flying the illegal cargo into the U.S. The money kept coming. The operation expanded. Barry hired 4 more pilots to keep up with demand. As his profits swelled, the CIA shifted tactics. They didn't just want weapons shipped, they wanted dissidents brought to the US for training, then sent back to overthrow their governments. Monty reminded Barry he'd already been given an airfield. What more did he need? But things didn't go as planned. Many dissidents, traumatized by poverty and hunger, vanished once they reached US soil rather than return home. Still, Barry didn't worry about their fate, he focused on the money. Soon, Barry faced a new problem. With so much cash, he couldn't deposit it all into banks without raising questions. He only put a little into accounts and spent the rest living lavishly. He handed out baseball tickets all year to the town, bought Lucy a new car, and renovated their home. Even so, his income doubled what he spent. To hide his earnings, Barry created several businesses and hired townspeople in make-work jobs. He stashed cash in every corner of his house and even buried some in the backyard. He was living the high life. Then one day, Lucy's irresponsible brother came asking for money. Barry didn't refuse. He wanted to get rid of him. But Lucy insisted he be given work instead of handouts. Barry couldn't refuse this. He took her brother, JB, down to the plane hangars and put him to work cleaning. A job that would keep him busy and out of trouble. The story had now come full circle. Barry was at home, carefully hiding cash notes. He was just clearing some bills from the table when he saw JB arrive in a brand new car with his girlfriend in tow. Lucy was furious when she realized her brother hadn't been working at all, just stealing money and showing off. Barry asked JB where the money had come from. JB casually replied, "I found a bag full of cash while cleaning. Bought the car with it." Barry was angry, but what could he do? That wasn't the end of it. Over the next 2 years, Barry became increasingly careless. Eventually, the DEA noticed him and set a trap. But Barry knew planes. He knew their speed and range. That night, he circled the ocean until the DEA's planes ran out of fuel and had to turn back. However, he soon caught the attention not just of the DEA, but also the FBI. The authorities were suspicious of how much money Barry was acquiring. FBI agents arrived in Mina to investigate. They were baffled. Banks were overflowing, luxury cars lined the streets, and nobody could figure out where all the wealth was coming from. During another mission, Barry also caught the attention of Border Patrol. Learning from the DEA's failed attempt, they sent 2 planes to trap him. Enraged, Barry descended and landed directly on a highway. As he stepped out, he tossed a few bills to nearby kids, grabbed a bicycle, and disappeared. Before Barry could catch his breath, Pablo called. The DEA was now after him too, so Pablo fled to Nicaragua. Barry followed. JB, meanwhile, grabbed a suitcase full of cash, hopped in his new car, and went to celebrate at a restaurant, only to find police eating there. Terrified, JB ran, but the cops caught him. Barry was in a meeting with Pablo when Lucy informed him of the incident. He rushed back to Mina and hired the town's most expensive lawyer to get JB released. Pablo grew suspicious. What if JB had already spilled everything to the police? Pablo told Barry, "I'll help you clean this mess up." Barry realized if Pablo handled it, things could turn violent. He tried to stop him, but Pablo wouldn't listen. Barry raced to meet JB, got him into a car, and handed him a package containing enough money to live comfortably for life, along with a passport and plane tickets. Barry wanted JB gone, out of the country. JB, however, thought Barry was trying to trap him. Angrily, he demanded monthly payments or he'd report everything to the police, even insulted Lucy. Barry lost his temper and chased him, but JB sped away. Moments later, a massive explosion destroyed the car. JB was killed, and cash scattered everywhere. Barry realized immediately this was Pablo's doing. Barry retrieved JB's car, dragged it into the forest, and left it there. Barry retrieved JB's car, dragged it into the forest, and left it there. Meanwhile, the CIA learned that the weapons Barry had flown to Nicaragua had ended up in the hands of drug traffickers. Few of the trained dissidents returned to fight. The CIA finally realized bringing them to the US for training had been a huge mistake. Monty was ordered to cancel the mission. Seeing everything return, Barry asked Monty if there were more assignments. Monty stayed silent. "Wait for my signal." Barry understood he was trapped. Monty no longer needed him. The next day, Monty instructed that all documents connecting Barry to operations be destroyed. Barry told his team to prepare to flee. Just as they were about to leave, DEA, ATF, FBI, and local police stormed in. Barry was taken into custody and brought before the prosecutor to ensure he received the maximum sentence. In the meantime, Barry tried bribing everyone. "I'll make your life 100,000? No, 10 mil. Then, unexpectedly, the lawyer received a call. Barry realized things had changed. The prosecutor stormed out, ordered his handcuffs removed, and just like that, Barry was free. Two men in suits escorted him to a car, and he assumed they were Monty's men. He was taken directly to the White House to meet the president. Barry was nervous, unsure why he was there. The CIA director and an army colonel had a plan. Barry would deal with Pablo one last time, while secretly photographing everything for evidence. Barry agreed, terrified. If Pablo or Escobar even suspected a setup, he'd be dead. Barry said goodbye to his family and, with his assistant, traveled through a storm to Nicaragua. As the plane landed, armed soldiers greeted him. Panicked, Barry tried explaining it was just a gift. Then Pablo appeared, ordered his men to kill him. Barry froze, but Pablo laughed and told his men to stand down. His sense of humor was cruel but precise. Barry calmed down and handed Pablo and his crew all the weapons. One of Barry's teammates secretly activated a spy camera, capturing clear footage of Pablo and his men. This gave the authorities irrefutable evidence. The director threw a party to celebrate. Barry had successfully completed a dangerous mission. But the government broke its promise. Barry's face was shown on TV. The authorities wanted Pablo to see it. Now, Pablo knew he had been betrayed. He sent henchmen to seek revenge. Soon, the government flipped again, accusing Barry of smuggling. The FBI seized all his money and property. The night before his assets were confiscated, Barry got Lucy to wear all their jewelry and escape. Authorities couldn't seize what she had on. Though she didn't want to leave Barry, she understood she had no choice. She had to protect their children. The next day, the FBI ransacked Barry's home. He realized he had lost everything: his family, his money. Slowly, things settled, and Barry's sentence was reduced. Knowing Pablo wouldn't let him live easily, Barry changed hotel rooms every night, living in fear for several years. Until, one day, a thug shot him in the car. So, was Barry's fate justified or unfair? Let me know in the comments.